you didn't see Steve Bannon's new interview, he said that Trump will be president in 2028 and the American people will have to deal with that. So as the American people, and asking the American people, are we dealing with...
Holy shit. I have been a skeptic from the beginning, but I think we're about to find out that the Democratic shutdown strategy was genius, because the Washington Post just broke some news. And you're gonna find out, even if you're not paying attention. But the health insurance marketplace just started showing people prices, even though open enrollment isn't available yet. What they found is because of Donald Trump, health insurance prices are set to increase by 18% this year. But that's not even close to the whole thing, because that 18% price increase doesn't include the subsidies expiring. Once you add in the cost that you're gonna have to pay because Donald Trump's one big beautiful bill canceled the subsidies, the average annual cost for individual coverage is going to jump from $888 this year to $1,904 next year. That's a 114% increase in the cost of health insurance in 1 year. And if they find a way to preserve the subsidies, it will be exclusively because Democrats refused to let it go. And because Americans refused to buy the bullshit Republican lie that this was all about providing free health care for illegal aliens. Trump's approval rating has already plummeted into the 30s, because Americans know that when the government shuts down, you should probably hold accountable the people who run the government. But that's just political accountability. What happens when Americans see that Donald Trump is demanding $230 million in grievance payments from the Department of Justice, while at the exact same time they're asked to pay 114% more for health insurance for their family than they did last year? Americans are going to realize that the Republican Party that once only cared about millionaires and then only cared about billionaires, now only cares about one man.
This Sunday's question is, how long will the Trump Republican regime last? And here are some variables to consider before you answer. So first off, Trump is old and in terrible health, and he has no succession plan. So how long can he live might be the better question. And will his regime fall once he's gone? A second variable is, how long do dictators usually last? And we can look at the historical patterns of dictatorship to answer that. So the average dictator lasts about 13 years, but there is a huge variation. Personality dictators, such as Trump, opposed to military dictatorships, tend to survive longer. Dictatorships that maintain a democratic facade, like holding elections and maintaining a legislature, even though the elections are predetermined, average about 14 years. But if the regime faces restraints, which is still occurring in the US, such as some court rulings going against the regime and some opposition in the populace, in these situations, dictators tend to last only about 5 years. Historically, many dictators fall when they're incapacitated or when they die, which may be just a few years in the case of Trump. And of course, there are the outliers, dictatorships that have lasted for more than 40 years, and dictators such as Hussein al-Zaim in Zaire in 1949, who lasted about 137 days, Pedro Carmona in Venezuela in 2002, who lasted less than a day, and perhaps the world record, Pedro Lascurain in Mexico in 1913, who lasted 45 minutes. A third variable to consider is economic performance, the promise that you might not have freedom, but you have stability. When the economy grows, people are willing to trade liberty for order. But when it crashes, that loyalty disappears overnight. And history supports this. Regimes fall not when people get angry, but when people get hungry. And Trump has crushed the American economy in just a few months, and as food prices and prices on everything continue to spiral upward and unemployment continues to increase in America, this may make the Trump Republican regime quite short-lived. So what do you think? How long will Trump and the Republicans be able to control America? Let us know what you think in the comments, and join us at culturalperspective.com for more on global affairs and historical pattern.
How bizarre is it to see what's happening in the US with the US under Trump? Now, their biggest threat isn't any foreign country. It's people inside that don't agree with him, that think critically and don't believe his bullshit. People that are educated and understand that he's full of bullshit and lies. And he's trying to turn the military against those people in his own country. So not to fight or defend their country internationally, but to suppress what free-thinking people are thinking and saying. It's fucking terrifying.
Apparently, Dominion Voting Systems, yes, that Dominion Voting Systems, was bought by a former Republican election official. A pro-Trump former Republican election official. They were bought out by a company called Liberty Vote, which is a brand new company. oddly enough. They said they plan to follow Trump's executive order from last spring, making sweeping changes to election policies. You know, policies that multiple judges have now put on hold for violating the Constitution. Oh, but it gets even better. Because when the company changes hands, it is not required to do an audit for recertification, which means Liberty can make as many changes as they want to their systems. The company said they plan to conduct a full review of their equipment before the 2026 midterms and will rebuild or retire old machines as necessary. These machines that were used in 27 different states during the last election. So the election machines in our country that were used in more than half of the states were bought out by a Trump-humping Republican in a brand new voting company that is now going to make sweeping changes to the machines and their software before the midterms. Does this not fucking scream Russia to anybody else? This is absolutely fucking insane. Like every other foreign authoritarian fascist regime, this dictator now has control over the voting machines. And as Joseph Stalin once said, those who cast the votes decide nothing. Those who count the votes decide everything.
Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Anthony, and it's really amazing having you here watching my videos. And ensure that you comment, because that's where the real discussion goes on. Because I really have many viewers from United Kingdom, from Canada, from Australia, who are really ashamed, and they are really concerned by what's going on in the United States at the moment, right? The executive branch of the government has become more powerful because the legislative arm and the judiciary has given it the power and the control. So let's continue watching, and I'll be giving my conclusions at the end of this video.
I just want to give context to this because Donald Trump is demanding that the Department of Justice pay him $230 million for past investigations, like during his first presidency. He owns the Department of Justice. The people that run the Department of Justice are his old employees, including ones that defended him in these cases. So he's basically telling a department that he is in charge of to pay him, and the people that are going to do this are his former personal lawyers. And we're supposed to sit here and get crammed down our throats by half of Americans that lack any critical thinking skills that he is somebody who doesn't take a single dime from his presidency. I am fully convinced that we all actually died during COVID, and we are in the bad place right now. I'm almost at the point now where saying this is not normal is just stupid, because this just is the new normal.
Well, unfortunately, isn't it everything that I predicted about almost a year ago? So I grew up in Christian fundamentalism, Christian nationalists, and I know why the US government is so fucking insane and why the Supreme Court especially is so fucking insane. So I grew up in the Christian fundy world, and the first thing that they said that they were planning to do is to overtake the Supreme Court, because they saw that using the American constitutional system and government, that the weak spot to take over the government was in the Supreme Court, and that if they can get in their justices, that way they can basically make the laws of the land, and that the founders gave the Supreme Justices too much power. This has been planned since I was a kid. The biggest things that they wanted to overturn were Roe v. Wade. They want to go back to household voting, and of course they do not like the immigrants and people of color. I explained in my video last year that the people of color are in a lot of danger just living in such a racist, horrible country with this administration, and the Supreme Court today proved that right in saying that in LA you can basically just be racist motherfucker, and it's totally legal to grab people off of the street without giving them due process just because they speak Spanish. Did you know that the United States is the only fucking country with no national language? Like, it's not English. The US doesn't have a national language. And just the fact that we used to be the melting pot, and that's what made America great. If you want to make America great again, like, go back to when we were letting people in Ellis Islands. That was the goal, and it wasn't the golden days. No, because still the racism and stuff. But when you talk about so many generations of what America meant, it was like that Ellis Island, land of the free, again, mostly just for white people. But we've lost that, and now we have this fucking Supreme Court that so many people are gonna get hurt. So, like, if you know, right now community is really important, and if someone needs to come to your house for a while to lay low, we need to be doing that. So buckle in, because it's getting shittier and shittier.
The President of the United States, Donald Trump, bulldozes our house, posts videos of himself shitting on Americans, sends ICE into our neighborhoods to arrest our neighbors, and sends the militaries into our cities to harass our citizens. And through it all, the Republican Party could stop him like that. And the fact that no Republicans will stand up to him makes the entire Republican Party complicit. So if you are running, say, as a municipal election, Board of Ed, mayor, governor, anything this November, and you're running on the Republican ticket, you are running for the party that is doing this to the United States of America. Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. You cannot not have a publicly stated, clear position on what he is doing in DC, regardless of whether or not his policies impact directly the job you're running for. Because let's be real, everything that happens in DC does impact every single aspect of the United States government, from dog catcher all the way up. And it's laughable to me that Republicans in Congress are saying that Democrats are terrified of the No Kings protesters, and that's why they won't cave to Republican demands to gut the American Health Care Act. Because once again, it is just a projection. Because in reality, it is Republicans who are terrified of Donald Trump and whatever kind of revenge he will take on them if they do not kiss the ring or another part of his anatomy.
My greatest worry is not about President Trump, right? My greatest worry about this country is about the next presidents, because they will be using Trump's actions as president, right? Or what do you think? Maybe tell me in the comment section. Maybe we might even have worse president than Trump in the next years, worse Republican presidents, because of the Project 2025, the way it said that the next presidents will be Republicans, and when it happens, they will be using Trump presidents. So the actions of Donald Trump you are seeing at the moment, they are nothing compared to what is coming in the future.
Y'all ever notice how Republicans would rather rewrite reality than admit that Trump is in those Epstein files? Baby, that's a cover-up if I've ever seen one before.
Public reporting, survivor testimony, and official documents show that Bill Clinton had far closer ties to Epstein.
So you see how they're working overtime to separate Donald Trump from those Epstein files? And you gotta ask yourself, why? Trump didn't have ties, and he had nothing to do with Epstein. Then just release the files. I think all of this is pretty simple. Instead, they're going to twist themselves into pretzels to try to convince you to believe some alternative storyline. And this is the wild part. The solution is right there in front of their faces. All Mike Johnson has to do is swear in that representative from Arizona, and then boom, they can take the final vote on those Epstein files. She's the tie-breaking vote, and they can release it and prove that Trump has no affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein. But they don't want that, because they know once those files are out, folks are going to get the digging, and you're going to know the truth about Trump's relationship with Epstein. And I don't trust Republican Congress to summarize nothing. Release the files. Ask yourself, why is the Republican Party fighting this hard to keep the public in the dark? Why are they dangling distractions every time Epstein comes up? Because when it comes to Trump and Epstein, there are receipts. And the American people deserve to see them. Not their spin, not their talking points. The actual files. Release the files. Because the harder they fight to hide them, the clearer something is to me. They're covering something up.
There was a time when American presidents at least pretended to respect borders. Not just those drawn lines on a map, but the invisible ones, marked by sovereignty, dignity, and restraint. Well, that time has passed. We now export chaos like it's corn syrup. And Donald Trump is high on his own myth. He has reached across the equator to try and rewrite the laws of another nation with nothing more than a pen and a grudge because his buddy Bolsonaro is finally being held accountable. And that makes Trump nervous, because when one of them goes down, it sets a precedent, and precedent is the one thing fascists fear more than truth. So on July 30th, Trump did what autocrats do when their friends are cornered. He threw a tantrum, but then he threw a tariff. He signed an executive order declaring a national emergency, and not because of a flood, not because of famine, but because Brazil's judiciary had the gall to prosecute a criminal. He used the IEEPA, which is the law meant to protect us from actual foreign threats, to punish a sovereign nation for trying to hold a man accountable for plotting a coup. But he didn't stop there. He also sanctioned the justice overseeing Bolsonaro's trial. He froze his U.S. assets, barred him from travel, and called him corrupt, authoritarian, and dangerous. And that, my friends, is projection at a geopolitical level. The same man who praised Putin, flirted with Kim, and dined with Orban just accused a sitting Brazilian judge of tyranny. All for trying to preserve democracy while Trump's twin tried to light it on fire. And make no mistake, this is not about policy. This is not about trade. It's not about America first. This is very personal. It's payback. It's vengeance wrapped in the stars and stripes. And Trump doesn't give a good goddamn about soybean prices or currency volatility. He cares about Bolsonaro staying free, because Bolsonaro staying free keeps the lie alive that elections don't matter, that truth is negotiable, and that power belongs to the loudest liar in the room. But Brazil has said no. President Lula, for all his flaws and scars, has stood his ground. He said Brazil would not be blackmailed. He said justice wasn't up for trade. And the people met that tyranny with memes. They started a social media rebellion, a digital middle finger, if you will. They turned Trump's rage into satire, and for once, the internet became a weapon for democracy instead of division. And it's beautiful, it's wild, and it's Brazilian. It's also very effective, because this time the playbook didn't work. This time the strongman threat met a people who had seen it all before and are done being shamed. They're done being bossed, and they're done being told that their justice system is illegitimate because it dares to function. But let's not miss the point. What Trump did isn't just inappropriate, it's dangerous. He used American power to try and suppress another country's judiciary. He wielded the economy like a club, and he sanctioned a judge in a democratic nation for doing his job. You know who does that? Not Roosevelt, not Eisenhower, not Kennedy or Reagan, not even Bush or Nixon. Tyrants do that. And it might not even hold. Legal experts are already circling. A trade case, VOS elections versus United States, is waiting in the wings and will probably rip this executive order to shreds. The very law Trump used will probably betray him. But that's the problem with arsonists. They forget which way the wind blows. But here's the part that burns deepest. If you're still defending this, if you're still waving your little flag and saying this is about strength or patriotism or leadership, then ask yourself, do you really believe in any of it? Or do you just believe in power so long as your guy's the one holding the stick? Because if you believe in justice, you don't threaten judges. And if you believe in freedom, you don't sanction sovereign nations for doing what we claim to stand for. If you believe in America, you don't use her as a cudgel to save the guilty and punish the brave. This wasn't freedom. It's not foreign policy. This is a hostage note and a shakedown written in White House letterhead. But Brazil said no. Thank God, Brazil said no. Defiance till death.
Thank you to everyone who has watched this video to the end. I have viewers locally and internationally, so it's amazing having you all commenting, engaging in these all discussions, right? So I think Trump's aim is to replace our constitution with Project 2025, and our legislative arm of the government, the judiciary, they are complicit in all of this, right? There is no incentive of them getting out of power. Because when you see Trump's actions, him threatening the Congress, our Congress is powerful than the president. But our president threatens our Congress. Why? Because he captured the Republican Party. And now, the Republicans are wondering how we are having this no king's protest. Trump is no king. That's what they are saying. But Trump is a puppet. The Christian nationalists, the Heritage Foundation, they are propping him up. Trump is just a project. He's just a project. A pilot project to test the limits that Americans can go to protect their freedom, to protect their democracy. Why? Here's the reason. In the first Trump administration, Trump had people in government who could check him, people who could not bend to his will. Now he has the likes of Pete Texas, the drunkards. He has the likes of Christinoem Pambody, who can't make informed decisions. He has the likes of J.D. Vance, who can do anything for power. You know what I mean? So the situation we are having as a country, it's really wanting. In case of what we saw in 2021, if it happened again, no one is there to stop Trump. No one, literally no one. Our military is clapping for him whenever he makes these stupid remarks like he want to turn our cities into military training grounds, right? Our military starts cheering him up. What's happening in our country? What's wrong with our country? What's wrong? It's systematic. What's happening in our country? From the funding of education, from cutting Medicare, from threatening people with immigration, deportations, whatever. It's all deliberate. It's all designed. And I saw someone in my comment section saying that one of the reasons that our administration delays the naturalization process of people who have been here even for 10 years, even for 20 years, is to constantly keep them on toes, or to constantly keep them in fear of deportation, to keep them in line. So it's really sad what's happening in our country, and the current administration is testing us, our limits, whatever. So give me your comments, give me your thoughts, and stay blue, vote blue, talk blue. Until the next video, thank you for your attention to this matter.